sun first kisses the earth, the bounty of nature shares its gifts to provide, to delight, and to nourish. For over 2 decades, Earthright Holdings Incorporated, through its publicly listed subsidiary, Agri-Nurture, has been harvesting these gifts to reward the farmer, to strengthen the family, and to build the nation. Annie has mastered the logistics of moving produce and staples. It has also manufactured value-added agri-output such as coconut water, a product that has started a new trend in big supermarkets and online retailers in North America. To complete its mission of providing from farm to plates, Annie has its nurturing brands such as Big Chill, Tully's Coffee, Fit Bites, Fresh Brew, Super Fresh, FCA, and Cheesecake, etc. All fast-moving, healthy retail brands from the Philippines to the world. To date, Annie exports to Greater China, Japan, Korea, North America, Europe, Australia, the Middle East, and Russia. Taking to heart its vision of being a global leader in providing sustainable nourishment, Agri-Nurture firmly believes that the fruits you bear will only be as good as the seeds you plant. Its beginnings were grounded on reality, but its dreams were lofty. The company has shown that what is homegrown can be world-loved. Annie has aimed for excellence from farm to shelf and happiness from shelf to home. This is how it became one of the biggest suppliers of fresh fruits and vegetables in major supermarket chains and wet markets here in the country and abroad. In 2015, Agri-Nurture went from mango orchards to rice fields and eventually into corn and banana plantations. Annie's venture into rice trading has grown into thousands of hectares of farmlands dedicated to Philippine rice production. In 2020, Annie's Bigma, which stands for Bigas and Mais, has been authorized for introduction by the Philippine Department of Agriculture. This nutritious rice-corn blend is intended to be a substitute for rice, the country's staple food. More than this, Bigma is meant to give an additional source of income for local farmers and boost the production of corn. Beyond providing nutritious and affordable food products, part of Annie's mission is to uplift the lives of farming communities by addressing the issues that would keep them from being productive. Through affiliate Agricultural Bank of the Philippines, the AgriToken closed-loop ecosystem usher into the digital age. This integrated solution brings together the farmers, contract farming companies, and lenders and investors to provide financing to farmers for needed farming components. In line with this, the company also safeguards food security and safety. Advocacies for the environment and social upliftment are likewise not overlooked. Greenergy, Annie's other affiliate, also owns Sunchamp, a farm that aims to promote agritourism as a viable source of added revenue. Agri-Nurture stands strongly by its corporate values. Empowerment. To bolster company performance, Annie's employees and farmers are always encouraged to take the initiative in decision-making and problem-solving. Advancement. Improvement of the quality of life of employees, farmers, and investors remain a top priority. Reliability. What is committed will be delivered because of responsibilities to customers, suppliers, and investors. Teamwork. We believe that business is built through each other and everyone's contribution. This can only be achieved when you have trust. We earn trust by honoring our commitments and showing respect for one another. Honesty. Integrity, fairness, and ethical practices are the things we never compromise. From the first seed planted to the latest harvest, Agri-Nurture has grown from distributor of fresh goods, the farmer's strongest advocate, the country's agricultural bridge to the world, and now into a major innovator. The vision stays clear. The mission holds true, and the opportunities remain unstoppable. Whenever the sun last kisses the land, the bounty of nature makes another promise.
Napansin mo ba? Mas madalas ka nang magsabi ng stay safe kesa bye-bye. At aminin mo, nawili ka sa TikTok hindi para mapasaya ang sarili, kundi para mapatawang iba. Napansin mo rin ba na palagi na kayong kumpleto pag nagsisimba? At sino mag-aakala na ang daming maglalabas ang internet celebrities ngayon? Ilang pagkain na bang na-order mo? Kahit di ka naman gutom, uhaw ka lang makatulong. At nakailang care emojis ka nang nasend mula ng ECQ. Pansin mo, iba na bigla ang go-to playlist mo. Alam mo rin bang mas maraming naglalabas ng pera ngayon? Kahit taghirap? Alam mo kung bakit? Kasi patuloy mang magbago ang mundo, isang bagay ang mananatili.
Malalampasan din natin to.
Hindi tayo mawawalan ng pag-asa. Kaya patuloy namin pinapanatiling pinakamabilis at pinakamalawak ang inyong network. So we can all be connected by hope.
8 billion of us share our planet. And it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best. Quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this livestream event possible. Annie Nurture Incorporated, PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. PLDT, Smart, Simple, Smart Ako. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to. We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. So my name is Carlo Campo from the Inquirer Business section, and with me is Dax Lucas, Inquirer Business Writing Editor, who will be my co-moderator for the live stream event. So the Philippine Daily Inquirer and its sister companies introduced Project Rebound in the desire to empower Filipinos amidst these difficult times, and to do its part in helping our economy bounce back. So we have been doing this by sharing insights from experts and success stories that are meant to inspire others to recover and thrive. And this is also why we are here today. So to know more about this Project Rebound, let's watch this video.
The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting lockdowns have dealt a heavy blow on the economy. Millions of Filipinos were left jobless, thousands of companies were forced to close, and thousands more have had to downsize to ride out the downturn. But all is not lost. Almost a year into the crisis, the Philippines has begun its journey to recovery with stimulus measures and policies in place. Filipino companies, groups, and individuals have also shown their resilience and are slowly regaining their footing. The Philippine Daily Inquirer, along with its sister companies, seeks to do its share to help the Philippines bounce back from this unprecedented crisis by doing what it does best: tell the stories that empower the Filipino. Through Project Rebound, the Philippine Daily Inquirer will share expert insights and inspiring stories of how businesses can accelerate their recovery, how to retool and recalibrate to survive and even thrive amid the COVID-19 pandemic in collaboration with the government, civil society, and the private sector. With its 67 million strong reach across multimedia platforms, the Inquirer Group is indeed in a favorable position to inspire a rebound from the crisis. Together, we can and will overcome.
So before we introduce our guests, we would like to give an exclusive offer for our viewers. So you can get a free 30-day trial of the Philippine Daily Inquirer's digital edition, Inquirer Plus. So we are flashing the details on your screen right now, so you can see how to get this free trial. You can also visit shop.inquirer.com.ph to know more about Inquirer Plus. All right, so now it's time to introduce our guests for today's session. So our first speaker for today is Miss Stephanie Orlino. So Stephanie Orlino is the Assistant Vice President for Community Relations of Smart Communications, Inc., the company's corporate social responsibility arm that develops and implements innovative, scalable, and technology-enabling community-based programs in the areas of education, livelihood, disaster resilience, and health and nutrition. So good afternoon, Ms. Steph.
Good afternoon, Carl. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to sharing with everyone what we as a telco are doing to support the agriculture sectors. Good afternoon again.
Thank you, Steph. Now, our next speaker is Mr. Simon Villalon. Simon is a longtime executive in the information technology industry. Simon has scaled organizations to serve global customers spanning Asia, North America, Australia, and Europe. Simon has a passion for developing high-performing organizations and believes in using technology to create breakthroughs in reliable food security and sustainable urban design. So here's that marriage of tradition and new technology we're talking about. Good afternoon, Simon.
Thanks, Dax, and thanks for having me. So I'm really excited to share Good Greens and Company. We're a company under the Delbros Group, and people might be wondering what a tech guy is doing growing things. And that, like you said, that's part of this new breed, this new generation that's moving into this agriculture space, which we're happily calling agri-tech. Thanks, happy to be here.
Thank you, Sir Simon. We're happy to see you here. So our third speaker for today is Sir Antonio Chu. So Sir Tony is a Filipino-Chinese businessman with an innovative mindset and unparalleled vision for the Philippine agriculture industry and the country in general. He founded AgriNurture Inc., which is an agri-business company that aims to bring the best agricultural produce in every domestic market possible and to different countries across the globe. So good afternoon, Sir Tony.
Good afternoon, Carl. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here and share some of our experiences about the agricultural sector. Thank you.
And for our final speaker, we have Jim Leandro Cano. Jim is an advocate for mainstreaming youth engagement across the food systems processes, as well as digital agriculture. He finished BS Agriculture, major in agricultural systems, and is doing his MS in development management and governance, both at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He serves as a board member to the Professional Organization for Agriculturists in the Philippines, the Philippine Association of Agriculturists, or PAA, and also the science policy think tank that hosts the national scientists and the national academicians in agriculture and related sciences, called the Coalition for Agriculture Modernization in the Philippines, or CAMP. Finally, he is also the director for Agritech at 8-Layer Technologies, Inc. That's a lot on your plate. Good afternoon, Jim.
Hi, Dax. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Project Rebound for this. And really excited to share the space with all the other speakers and with you and to talk about agri opportunities.
All right, so thank you, Sir Jim. Now that we've introduced our panel, let's begin our discussion. So for our first question, this is for anyone. So how has the agricultural sector pivoted in response to both the pandemic and the shift to industrialization and digitalization? So maybe we can start with Miss Stephanie, followed by Sir Simon, Sir Tony, and then Sir Jim.
Yeah, sige. Hi, good afternoon again. Thank you, Carl. So I think one of the good things that we've seen happen amid everything that's happening now in the pandemic is the rise of social enterprises in agriculture that have stepped up and actually help address specific gaps in the entire agriculture value chain. So you have now social enterprises linking farmers to markets via e-commerce, and then you have those that improve farmers' productivity through sustainable farming practices, those that provide affordable capital via crowdfunding, so on and so forth. The not so good thing that we've seen happen is that this digitalization that's been accelerated by the pandemic has actually widened the digital divide even further and has threatened to further marginalize the agricultural sector. So it's simply because our farmers, diba, they're already aging and they're not too keen on adopting technology. So while we've been told that there has been an increase actually in requests for digital trainings, technical trainings, there's an uptake in downloads of applications and usage of solutions. Personally, I think we still have ways to go. So even our partners in the ATI, Agricultural Training Institute of DA, said that there are actually a lot of apps out there, technology solutions that's already out there. And what is lacking is actually the adoption. So for our part in SMART, what we're doing is we partnered with the ATI to provide digital literacy trainings for farmers to basically get them comfortable in using the technology and then hopefully, usher them into the digital economy.
Great step, and good to come after you. Coming from the world of technology and now sitting in the world of agriculture, I think what we really saw during the pandemic, after the initial shock of having everything shut down, was that people were quick to respond and people were quick to help each other. So whether it was those social enterprises that Stephanie earlier mentioned, we also saw a lot of people within the supply chain community come together and link their arms to try to bring the goods from the provinces into the urban centers where they were needed. So in that sense, our wider responsibility towards each other was expanded, which I think was an excellent thing that happened during the pandemic. And then very early on, other groups such as a cold chain community here in the Philippines, other manufacturers, other producers also realized that the importance of keeping the lights on was paramount for the country to start to move forward and to get back on its feet. From a two-part question, so you're talking about the pandemic. So the pandemic really showed who was and who was not ready in this new digital age. And what happened was that the pandemic exposed those who had a strong digital transformation plan, and for those who needed to kind of like go back to the drawing board and see whether the digital transformation plan was up to snuff. So that was the wake up call that the pandemic had, and we see now how quickly corporations and groups, whether in the public sector or the private sector, have now transformed their operations as well. So that's quite exciting. And this is the opportunity for us as well, because from an industrialization standpoint, we still see our challenges with regard to farm to road infrastructure, with regard to the manufacturing stages, the manufacturing processes, even down to the ability to grow goods, grow produce at a high volume. So now that we see that conversations start to narrow between the consumer and the producers, I'm excited to see what the next chapter is going to be with regard to how better we produce for the nation and produce for the world.
Well, in the case of the private sector, AgriNurture has experienced that during the pandemic, the shift to technology is a must, and embracing technology as the disruptor is a necessity for any enterprise to leap forward to the next level. So during the pandemic, we experience a lot of transactions, whether with the contract growers or the consumers via social media platform. I believe Philippines is one of the highest in terms of the smartphone penetration and social media penetration. Unfortunately, the digital inclusion, which means the access to digital infrastructure, basically the internet loads is the main hindrance for farmers to be actively included in the digital ecosystem. So this is a major hurdle that we would like to find creative ways to resolve in order to further penetrate the agricultural sector in terms of bringing the farmers into financial inclusion. So AgriNurture has been aggressively preparing the digital ecosystem that will allow us to fund our farmer through the agri token, the stable cryptocurrency that will somehow address the agri-agra funding gap of the country. But of course, as I've said, the digital infrastructure, the access to internet is the main hurdle that we're trying to solve in the next few years. Thank you.
Thanks. And it's nice to have those different perspectives on agriculture. And coming from someone who's come from the academe and moved into the private sector now, coming from the sciences of agriculture and really looking at how technology also addresses that. I think one thing is clear, no, during the pandemic is that what we've seen is that the pandemic has unearthed pre-existing inequalities in the food system. Not only unearthed, but also exacerbated it. No? So even the point of the digital divide widening, that was already there before the pandemic. It just got worse, no? Because we've seen how farmers who were marginalized became further marginalized due to the lack of access. I think on top of that, also, it's not just the hardware, but also, and not just the hardware and software, but also the capability of people, the literacy, really, as what Miss Stephanie mentioned a while ago, is also critical. And with PAA, we work with professionals, no, licensed agriculturists coming from different sectors, government, academe, civil society, research, and all these other sectors. We've seen that in the past year that we've held virtual conferences, one of the biggest things that we've been really addressing is how do we provide that thrust, how to leapfrog yung capacity ng members to be able to provide the services and still be efficient in what they do in serving farmers, in serving other stakeholders across the supply chain. I think that's very crucial for us to really address. Aside from that, it's not just the technology, but at the peak of the pandemic last year, we saw that there was a break in the supply chains. No, we had highly urbanized cities having no access to food. And I think that's where it's also crucial to look at urban agriculture as a as a solution. And that's one of the initiatives and projects that PAA is working on with DA and with other partners to create urban agriculture spaces now in highly urbanized areas. And I think it's really crucial that we look at technology also as an innovative process that revolves around people instead of people revolving around technology. So I think it has to be that kind of approach so that we better address the needs of people.
Fantastic. Thanks for the broad overview, everyone. Now, let's get down to the brass tacks. And I'd like to do a whip around and ask each of our panelists today, specifically in your organization, what were the programs you've implemented over the past few months to help the agricultural sector adapt to the pandemic? And, what's been going right? What more needs to be done? Maybe let's start with Steph.
Yeah, sige. Hi, Dax. So for us in SMART, I mentioned earlier that we partnered with DAATI and we call it the Digital Farmers Program. It actually started in 2019, but nag-take off nitong 2020. It is a ladderized digital literacy program that basically aims to get our farmers comfortable with the use of technology, like smartphones, the internet, so that in the long run they will be more receptive to the use of emerging technologies in agriculture. So instead of them being afraid of the technology or treating it as their enemy, the goal is really to make them realize that technology can help them. It can help them get access to information, access to a wider market. They can be part of a network of support, and they can learn about, better farming practices that they can apply to improve their production. And when I say it's ladderized, it's because it starts with the most basic use of the smartphone and the internet. Then we move on to more advanced agri apps, and e-commerce is tackled here, as Mr. Chu has mentioned earlier, is something that we need. And then all the way to agripreneurship and also smart farming technologies. And our strategy is to pair the farmers with the youth, because the youth, they're more tech savvy, so they can help guide the farmers in navigating the technology. So we're just happy that some of those that we've trained, actually after the training, they bought their own devices, their own smartphones, so that they can use it in their farming activities. And even those that have little to no knowledge on information and communications technology started participating in online discussions that we have even after the training. So there.
Fantastic. Simon, how does it look over at your end?
We're here, no? So we're an agri-tech company by nature. And what we do is we build smart vertical urban farms. And what we saw was what was pointed out earlier by Jim, right? The gap that we saw was that once supply chains break down, highly urbanized centers such as Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, Davao, cities with like populations of 1 million people and above, all of a sudden, they have no place to get their food. No? Talagang mahirapan na sila makuha ng mga gulay nila. No? So we know most of the vegetables that come to Metro Manila are grown outside. That's what's been done historically and traditionally. We think that there's a space in the ecosystem to have pocket green farms within Metro Manila. So our technology specifically is we focus on smart farms, so powered by IoT devices. And we build these highly automated urban farms to produce at a high level of productivity. So our ratio is 1:100, meaning 1 square meter of farmland that we use can produce the equivalent of 100 square meters of traditionally grown agriculture. No? So there has to be economies of scale. No? So what we did was we had our technology. We'd been running it in a couple of provinces in the Philippines, and we knocked on the door of the DA and we said, hey, is there a use for this? Can you use this during the pandemic? And immediately they paired us up with the people who were running the urban agriculture programs. And they said, let's give it a shot. So we ran several proof of concepts with them. And last year we built one in partnership with the city of Navotas and the Boy Scout troop of Navotas. And so that we built that in the middle of the pandemic, and we cut it over, and we started operating. So it took us a few months to build it, and by the end of the year last year, we were harvesting leafy greens in the middle of Navotas, and that was quite successful. And we expanded that project. So the I think the message here is, with the right application of tech, the right support, the right partners, and some creativity, we can come up with solutions to help cover that food security issue and that digital divide that we've been talking about.
1 to 100. That is a jaw-dropping ratio.
That's what we need for it to be in the city. Thank you. Thank you.
Tony, we were talking just before the pandemic, and you had lots of plans for 2020 going forward. I thought you'd slow down, but you've been as busy as ever. Tell me about it.
Well, basically, from a macroeconomic perspective, that's our vision is, as a private enterprise, we also want to participate in helping alleviate some of our nation's food security problems. So the pandemic made us realize that even if you have the money, your neighboring countries may not necessarily also want to sell to you due to their needs. And our other initiative or vision is trying to cut down carbon footprint. We do not believe that basic staples should have to travel that far to reach the consumers, whereas you can produce it locally. And we also do not think that it is healthy for the country to be so much import dependent. We should be promoting more on export and try to localize some of the things that we can nurture to be the next champions. So so far there has been progress, and although despite of the bureaucratic delays, we are about to commence on a big scale Bigma project, the Bigas Mais project, which aims to produce corn in southern Philippines, so as to support the food security program of the Vismin population, whom are very accustomed to using corn as their staple. So this is a major game changer, which aims to cut down our import dependence on rice from neighboring countries by at least a quarter, and slowly we can also transfer some of the excess to the feed industry. So the availability of cheaper corn will also help somehow alleviate the pain of the hog industry, the poultry industry, whom are very, very much dependent on cheaper and better feeds to lower their cost of production. This is actually targets that are realistic and should be the top priority of the government.
Big plans, and for all our sakes, I hope it works. Okay, Jim, you are wearing several hats, and I imagine all of these organizations represent have some kind of initiative for the pandemic going on. Give us a glimpse, please.
Yeah, I was just going to ask and at least say that, I take probably several hats just to give that breadth of approaches that we've done. So on the institutional policy side, with PAA, we've really worked with DA in the past year also to also establish something similar to a pop-up growing urban agri space. And so we were going to be launching next week in Pop-Up Katipunan, the Hydro Hub, which is in partnership with DA and the Freshest, and also with we have some scientists coming from UP who are behind it as well. So it's basically a vertical farming setup also that it somehow showcases that approach also, and it's featuring a solution that the scientists have developed on that. I think on the aspect of institutional approach also, aside from the all of us migrating to digital approaches. What we've really focused in on with PAA is how we can retool our members, no, in the past year, and we're looking at a nationwide from all regions, spanning different sectors of licensed agriculturists in their own fields, and really helping and aiding them through the conferences and seminars that we've held to equip them on how to better adapt to the changing environment that agriculture is seeing. On the aspect of, if I shift now to CAMP, no, the Coalition for Agriculture Modernization, what we've done is work closely with DA to push for the provincial agri-fisheries extension system, or PAFES. And this is in line with the farm consolidation approach of DA, and really trying to address the issue of, or at least the gap and the lapse of the devolution of agriculture extension. So on this aspect, it's really working closely with the provinces to look at what are their priorities, and then looking at what are the aspects in which we can add value. No, hindi lang raw materials ang titingnan ngayon, but how we can even add value at the as close to the farm as possible. So really working closely with government and local governments to see how we can add value and provide that extension system. On lastly and quickly, in a private sector hat, no, coming from the academe, shifting to the private sector during the pandemic, we've really focused on in creating IT solutions for agri, and I'm happy to say that what we've focused in on is a supply chain solution, really looking at farm management solution that spans beyond the farm. And so we've gone further to look at how we can establish transparency in the supply chain. And with that, we've 8Layer has signed an exclusive partnership with GS1 Philippines, no, na kung sino man ang nagpro-provide ng barcodes ng lahat ng produkto, we've worked on a traceability solution to help trace the food, and also address food safety, food quality ng mga products natin. And so I think that's very crucial, na supply chain ang approach natin, hindi lang nakafocus sa kung saan ang pinoproduce ang food, but really looking at how integrated solutions can be done for agriculture.
Fantastic insight, and thank you, Carl. It's very enlightening. Ano, parang supply chain seems to be the common theme among all our guests here. All right, all yours, Carl.
Really apparent, no, that technology can be adopted across the industry's value chain. It's not just for in production, distribution, and marketing. So for next question, coming from different backgrounds, so we'd like to know, how can agricultural practices can be more sustainable and resilient against the multiple disasters that continue to assail this country on a regular basis? So maybe we can start again with Ms. Steph.
Yes, thanks, Carl. So we're not experts, no, in agriculture, but those that we work with have said that the way to go is to climate proof. It's basically by getting access to timely and accurate information that will allow our farmers to properly prepare for the impending hazard. So it's very much, I think, like, when you're preparing your home and your family, when you know that there's a storm coming, you make sure that you have enough water, food, and phones are charged, etc. So on the one side of that is actually making the information available, and that would require, technology solutions like sensors, algorithms, satellite images, etc. But on the other side of it is getting the information in the hands of the farmers. So for our part, what we do is we help them get access to devices through farmer co-ops. And then also we train them on how to use the technology that will get them the information that they need in order to prepare.
I think this is a great question, no? Because as we know, climate change is upon us. And everything that we experience from a disaster perspective has been so different, I will say. No, I remember when the first large one that hit Metro Manila was Ondoy several years back. No? So that must have been 2009, maybe like 12 years ago. And I think we're about in the same space. The good thing with Ondoy is that we quickly learned how to use big data. So we learned how to capture the right information, put it into a central repository, and then run our algorithms against that. No? So if you pardon me while I wear my tech hat for a bit. No? So we put everything together, and then we started to build these data models to better predict. Now, if we look at the way that we respond, so going across the years, we've been able to respond better to these types of disasters. The challenge with agriculture is that you can't turn agriculture on a pin. Ibig sabihin, yung timeline para magtanim tapos mag-ani ng gulay, ng mais is long. So we have to take the long view with regard to disaster resiliency. And the way that we take the long views, we have all of this historical data available either in private institutions or in public institutions, and we need to run the models across that so we be able to see where that changes. Now, for me personally, my thoughts are we know where the disasters come from generally. We're talking about annual typhoons. If we talk about volcanic areas, which are susceptible to natural disasters across the line, we generally know where they are and the data is there and we have very intelligent people studying it. What we need to do is to take a long view. So meaning if a particular province is regularly storm ravaged, then what's the next nearest province that can help them or the province across? So there is the opportunity for that data to be modeled and solutions to be put in place and agreements, whether it's LGU to LGU or nationally coordinated through the NDRMMC for these types of responses to work. Then that's part of the food security challenge that we need to solve for each other. It's not something that a single province or a single person can do on their own, but it really is a coordinated effort across multiple parties. And that's a challenge and it's a blessing because we saw during the pandemic how much more we can do when we work together. So that's the key for us going forward. The data, the willingness to work with the data, and the willingness to put in these high-tech solutions or practical solutions going from province to province and thinking about it in the bigger picture.
From my side, I believe that the government should be investing in more infrastructure that pertains to weather-related technology, so they can have a better information dissemination to the farmers. Other than that, there should be a shift in terms of using the lunar calendar for agriculture instead of a solar calendar, because agriculture is more related to the gravitational pull of the moon rather than the rotation of sun. So this is a very critical move that will at least reduce weather-related losses. From private sector side, on our end, we're trying to get into more precision farming. So we're trying to weatherproof our greenhouses. We're trying to migrate to glass houses, making them producing the required quantity, the required quality at the required time. So this is something that will enhance the output of the hard work of the farmers if we can shift towards this strategy, which was proven to be successful by a lot of Western countries such as Netherlands. They used to have great floods, but at the end of the day, they evolved to be the best solution provider for flood control. They used to be very poor in agriculture, but right now, that's this small country of Netherlands is number 2 in terms of agricultural output in the world, next to the US. So there is, if there's a crisis, there's always an opportunity. Thank you.
I think I would approach that question also on a blend again of solutions, saying that, when we talk about climate proofing agriculture, there's no silver bullet to it. There's no blanket approach, especially in the context of the Philippines, which is archipelagic in nature. What we experience or what we see in Region 8, for example, that always sees all these typhoons coming from the Pacific, will not be the same kind of context as this other side of the country, or in the middleman of the country. So it has to be really context specific. And one other thing that we have to look into is not only new technologies. I'm in an IT company on a day-to-day basis, but there has to be this, when we look at innovation, it has to be that assemblage of old, new, existing, traditional technologies in the context specific approach. Meaning there are technologies such as buffer strips, agroforestry, agroecology, biodiversity, or no-tilling, farming practices that actually reduce the environmental impact. And these are the kinds of things that we have to explore, we have to maximize, and not just go after a new silver bullet all the time that it comes out. No, I mean, for us as a company, of course, we push for data driven, agriculture. We push for precision agriculture. But at the same time, it has to match on the ground that kung kaya naman, no, ng buffer strips, like you plant mangroves across the coast to reduce the impact of floods, or typhoons, or even a tsunami or a storm surge. That already has a huge impact in reducing the effect of these environmental disasters. And also, I think it's also important to look at, when we look at climate proofing, there's a very close link to the economic proofing of local communities. What do I mean? Is that if we're planting the same crop all over again in the same place that's exposed to these typhoons, I don't think that's a very smart move, no. Where we all on data, we already have an average of 20 to 22 typhoons per year. And so we have to really be, and it has to be, again, of going back to Mr. Simon's approach, no, na modeling, because the data on the ground will have to be modeled again and again and updated. And so it has to be that kind of approach, that if we're planting tomatoes here and then they're continuously, getting hit, but then in other parts of the country they're dumping tomatoes because they can't reach the market, I would say that's a supply chain misinformation or miscommunication, no. So the climate proofing has to work closely with that kind of approach, also understanding and bridging the supply demand gaps, because we're not going to make sense implementing environmental impact solutions if we're not also addressing the coordination of growing certain crops in different areas of the country where it's always continuously ravaged by typhoons or calamities. So has to be a really big picture, but then also going into the context specific solutions.
All right, Jim, you reminded me of the classic definition of insanity: doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. Okay, guys. So sorry to pile it on, but here's another big challenge for the sector. Okay, we all know, you've touched on it briefly, the aging population of the agriculture sector. How do we improve or broaden the human resource base of agriculture? Specifically, draw in more of the youth. Steph, maybe some insights from a telco which is so good at engaging the youth.
Yeah, that's so kasi when we think about farming, we immediately always associate it with tilling the land, no, which is very labor intensive. And we've seen that no longer appeals to the youth. But the agriculture value chain, the ecosystem, is actually very wide. There's a lot of opportunity. We've established that. There's agripreneurship, agribusiness, especially with the use of technology. And this is where the youth of today are drawn to. And that's why we now have a lot of social enterprises helmed by young techpreneurs. So for us in Smart, one thing that we're doing is we're supporting DATI's AgriTalks, which features a lot of youth in farming to encourage basically other farmers and also their peers to go into agriculture, and that there's a future there. So an example for us would be si Ted and Bong Quemado. They are two of our successful Digital Farmers Program young graduates. They're from Balay in Bukidnon. They're the ones behind the successful social enterprise Mushroom City that sells mushroom chicharon. So from their family farm, these two 20-something-year-olds, very young, they harvest 20 to 40 kilos of mushrooms a day, and they've expanded to include other products made from mushrooms. So now they're paving the way, they're paying it forward by teaching other farmers and other youth, they're inspiring other youth in their community to basically use digital tools so that they can also be more profitable.
Fantastic. Excellent, inspiring examples. Simon, I know your side of the fence is heavy on tech. which is a very youthful thing. Do you see it filtering down to the lower echelons of the agricultural sector?
That's a great question. In terms of it filtering down, not yet, no. So the agriculture programs and the people that we bring into the company, they have an agriculture growing background. So for example, um, Central Luzon State University, for example, they have a very good agriculture program, and we get some people from there. And Los Baños as well, of course. UP Los Baños has arguably the best, one of the best in the country, right? So there's this push and a pull, I would suppose, between the youth because they see the nobility in it. And make no mistakes, when you talk to the people who are coming out of the colleges, they want to do it from a nation building standpoint. So that resonates very, very clearly with the millennials, with the Gen Zs. They see that it's a need. Food security is a need. There are 100 million Filipinos, and we all need to eat. And there are going to be 7 billion people in the world soon enough, and 7 billion people need to eat. So that food security aspect is very, very clear. What needs to be more appealing, and Stephanie mentioned this earlier, is where's the glamour in working in the dirt, right? And they know, and we've gotten people also who are second, third generation farmers, and they saw what previous generations had to go through when they were tilling their own land, when they had to make ends meet. So make no mistake, mahirap. Mahirap talaga maging magsasaka, ano? Now, the hope and the light that I see going forward is really mechanization and industrialization of the farms, meaning getting better tools, getting better equipment, connecting our farmers, ourselves, to the internet in a way that uplifts that state of life, where in one lifetime, a farmer will be able to transform their situation and be able to get to a space where they feel comfortable and they feel that they are secure. I think that's the challenge for us. Technology is a piece of the puzzle because it shows a way future, definitely, for it, but it has to get to the ground. It has to get to that point where they're working with the soil and they're working with the plants. And once that gap is closed, then it'll be easier to talk to the youth about it. And who knows, somewhere out there could be someone who's thinking about this, something dreaming of it, the same way that Elon Musk dreamt of sending a person into space, and Richard Branson, and all of them followed as well. Maybe there's someone out there, but that's a challenge that we need to be up to closing that gap, because there is nobility in the profession, and getting that nobility into something which is aspirational, economically viable, will put food on the table and clothes on their backs. That's a challenge that we need to all rise up to.
So, Tony, is that an issue you see from where you stand also? Fewer young people want to be in the sector, and what do we do about it?
Yes, the aging average age of the Filipino farmers is a given, because the farmers will never encourage their descendants to follow their footsteps because it's not lucrative. So from my perspective, other than embracing technology, making it sexy, other than imparting the social responsibility aspect, we should try to change the mindset from grassroots. Remember, even during our childhood, the first agric song that we will sing, it's about planting rice is never
Magtanim
fun.
ay di biro. Yeah.
Oh, so if it's that difficult, and if we failed in a test, our teacher will call us kamote. I guess the correlation of agriculture and being poor and being dumb. We have to change this mindset from textbook level. That's one. Two, from a financial perspective, I guess everything is about risk and reward. Just look at the criminals. At the risk of at the risk of being killed, they will still get into it because it's probably worth the risk. But how come for agriculture nobody wants to get into agriculture? Because it's just the reward is just not equivalent to the risk and the hard work that they will endure. So if we can use e-commerce, if we can expand the ecosystem, allow the Filipino products, the Filipino champions to be able to reach the export market. I guess if there's demand, there will be supply, and if there's a certain crops that can generate global interest, we can make millionaires out of the Filipino farmers. You'll never run out of youth to join the sector.
Fantastic. Jim, these policy issues are right up your alley. And you were already touching on it earlier, ano?
Yeah. So actually before I left my teaching stint at UP Los Baños, no, the university actually appointed me as the spokesperson, so to speak, for the College of Agriculture when we went around science high schools and trying to recruit high school students to go into the university degrees. And of course, the one assigned to me was BS Agriculture, no. And it was interesting because there was a group of science high school students that they did a pre-test and they did a post-test, no, nung after ako magsalita. Before I spoke, they were saying, they wouldn't consider agriculture. There's nothing interesting about it and all that. And when I gave the career talk, what I focused in on was the breadth of opportunities in agriculture, because we always when we talk about agriculture, the first thing that comes to mind to a young person is ayoko magbukid, ayoko mabilad sa araw, no, masisira kutis ko, pinaghirapan ko yung kutis ko, ganyan, or ayoko madumihan yung kamay ko, yung mga ganun, no. There is that reality. But when they saw that there's actually opportunities across the value chain, that you can be, kung magaling ka magsalita, you could be a salesperson in a company that probably does, agricultural inputs or even the produce itself. If you do like to innovate and do experiments, you could actually create types of food coming from raw materials, no? Cocoa sugar, virgin coconut oil, all these things. And then if you're a tech savvy person, you would want to go into the digital solutions aspect of agriculture, meaning you're going into the data-driven agriculture. I'm a drone hobbyist, and so I do aerial imagery for a consultancy services. So, they do extension service, but then if they need aerial mapping, they contact me. So I just fly my drone and then do that. And then if for agritourism areas, I established a company, a business that creates virtual tours. So we created virtual tours for their farms, no? And so it's really a matter of finding that niche in the agriculture, because it's not all about production. It's not all about being out there in the farm lang, because there's a lot, because there are young people who are people who love to be in the laboratories, meaning they love to do genetic engineering, probably they love to do probably breeding plants so that they can create better crop varieties. Now, so we have to educate the younger generation that there is a wealth of opportunity in agriculture, na hindi lang siya farming. Tama naman po yung sinabi ni Sir Tony, no, na the lucrative aspect is something that has to be addressed also, because in the past research that we've done and also what we've engaged young people, there's always that reality that they will not, the older generations will not encourage their kids to go into farming, because that's the reality that they see. And of course, young people will go into the more at least mas nalalagay sa billboard na career options, no, that have better job opportunities. But we also have to create, us different stakeholders have to create that environment that allows young people to pursue something lucrative or at least meaningful in agriculture. What do I mean? I finished BS Agri. After I graduated, I wanted to do mushroom farming. So I went to a bank, I was fresh grad. I went to a bank. I said, I want to loan this much because I want to set up a mushroom farm. Sabi naman ng bank officer sa akin, Toy, bata ka pa lang. Wag ka munang umutang kasi baka bata ka pa lang, malaki na utang mo agad. So for me, what I did, as I went to a family, I went to my boss, I borrowed money, I set up a pilot mushroom farm, no? And of course, for me to learn, I just broke even. I didn't lose, I didn't earn, but I broke even. What did I learn from that? If you add value to the mushroom, you create chicharon, like what Miss Stephanie said, you earn much more than you sell fresh mushrooms. So meaning there's that opportunity. We need to create that environment that helps young people to explore. And I'm very happy to see that DA is working with Land Bank, with ACPC to create financial instruments that allow young people to venture into business, into agribusiness, because this is what young people need. No, they have ideas, they just need that push, they need that capacity to go and run after their dreams. And so that's what we need. Zero interest, no collateral, yung mga very youth-friendly financial instruments. And that's what's very crucial. So for us, different stakeholders, we need to create that enabling environment. We need to raise the awareness among young people that there are opportunities, not only in farming, but across the supply chain, across the value chain, where they can do meaningful work, where they can earn, where they're not going to be back-breaking and they're just going to say, ayoko na dito kasi nalulugi lang naman ako for my time. So if we change the narrative, if we change the enabling environment, I think we'll see more young people coming into the industry.
Mind-blowing emoji. Brilliant. Carl?
Grabe, parang nakaka-encourage pumasok sa agriculture, no? So thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. Very insightful. And if you're watching and you have questions, feel free to send them in to our viewers and we'll ask our panelists to answer them for you. So before we continue with the next part of the program, we will have a quick break. So stay tuned for more.
Napansin mo ba? Mas madalas ka nang magsabi ng stay safe kesa bye-bye. At aminin mo, nawili ka sa TikTok, hindi para mapasaya ang sarili, kundi para mapatawang iba. Napansin mo rin ba na palagi na kayong kumpleto pag nagsisimba? At sino mag-aakala na ang daming maglalabas ang internet celebrities ngayon? Ilang pagkain na bang na-order mo? Kahit di ka naman gutom, uhaw ka lang makatulong. At nakailang care emojis ka nang nasend mula ng ECQ. Pansin mo, iba na bigla ang go-to playlist mo. Alam mo rin bang mas maraming naglalabas ng pera ngayon? Kahit taghirap? Alam mo kung bakit? Kasi patuloy mang magbago ang mundo, isang bagay ang mananatili.
Malalampasan din natin to.
Hindi tayo mawawalan ng pag-asa. Kaya patuloy namin pinapanatili pinakamabilis at pinakamalawak ang inyong network. So we can all be connected by hope.
8 billion of us share our planet. And it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best: quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
So we're back. I was on mute, I'm sorry. So hello everyone. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Inquire Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. So now we're moving on to the last part of our online discussion, and we have more questions waiting to be answered. So let's start off with this one. So this question is from the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, and this can be answered by anyone. Is there a way for the agricultural sector to integrate digital modes of operation? And what best practices and lessons learned can the Philippine agricultural sector share with other countries? So any insights from our speakers?
Well, to clarify the question, these are insights that we can share with other countries.
Yes. It says here now, I'm just going to repeat the question. So is there a way for the agricultural sector to integrate digital modes of operation? And what best practices and lessons learned can the Philippines agricultural sector share with other countries?
I'll take a stab at that. So I'll try to guess what digital modes of operation are. So particularly in our context, since we design, build, and operate farms, I would assume that the digital mode of operation would be to integrate that level of intelligence, or that layer of digitalization and intelligence within the operating system and the operating framework of the farms in order to drive either automation or to ease the collection of data, if I would say no. So in that case, we had to play catch up first, no? So before we could share with other countries, what we had to do is we had to kind of like catch up from a digitalization standpoint. And when we were doing our research, so we went to Israel, we went to Singapore, we were looking at farms in the Middle East, farms in Europe as well. And when we were looking at the cost per device, it was quite pricey, and the cost of software was quite pricey as well. So what we had to do is we had to kind of like trim it all down and say, what would be an economically viable solution to have this layer of technology, the IoT devices, the connectivity, the passive data collection. What would we have to do in order to get that type of technology into the Philippines to go out again, right? So I think what we shared and what we found is that there's good talent in country to build viable, reasonably priced devices to put in and to have that digital transformation effort kick in for our operation. So as we started running our farms, we started to use more and more locally developed devices and infrastructure in order to get the results that we wanted for our farms as well. No, so I think what we could share with other countries, at least from that cost perspective, is as a developing nation and as a country which is very, very price sensitive for the goods that are coming out, that type of creativity. So these frameworks that are developed, those are the ones that we could definitely share with other countries as well, other developing countries and established industries as well, who are looking to scale with technology and to improve their farms as well. So that Filipino creativity armed with world-class frameworks.
Right. So just related to this question, no, and again, anyone can answer. So are there any sustainable agricultural models that can be scaled or replicated? We're talking about models that you're also using, and then maybe these models can be adapted by other players as well, or recommendations to the local government or to other sectors. So anyone?
Maybe I'd like to start. Yeah, sige. Yeah. When we talk about, I'll just share now what we're doing in PLDT and Smart. When we talk about improving our agriculture practices, the focus is largely on the production side and improving operational efficiencies. And what is oftentimes overlooked is, but it's equally important, is linking the sellers to the buyers. So that so that's what we focused on in our Buy Local, Buy Smart program. So under the program, we provide local rice farmers with a sure market by getting our own employees in PLD Smart and the entire MVP group to buy their rice directly from our partner farming communities. And this helps increase their income because it's a captured market. And a part of the sales also goes to a fund that is offered back to the farmers as low-cost capital to fund their inputs for the next cropping cycle. And we do this in partnership with a social enterprise called Cropital. So actually, for those who want to support this program, they can actually just go to store.cropital.com and buy their rice. They can even send rice directly to community pantries that they're supporting. And they can also buy one and give one rice to our Rice Aid program, which goes into different feeding programs of our partners and also in terms of disaster relief, where we provide rice aid. And organizations or other companies can also reach out to us if they want to replicate this model with their own employees.
Fantastic. Okay. We've come to my favorite part of the show, which is the crystal ball gazing part. And I'd like to ask our panelists, siguro briefly, going forward, knowing what we know now, what will the agricultural sector look like? Number one, and number two, perhaps more importantly, what should a tech-enabled agricultural sector look like going forward? What needs to happen for success stories to come out of it? If you don't mind, we start with Steph again.
Yeah, sure. So many questions. So maybe just really going back to first maybe digital literacy. That's one, so that the adoption, is there, and then making it really maximizing and leveraging on technology like data analytics, and yeah, what Simon mentioned earlier, modeling. It's very important, and also collaboration. I think, and that's what we've seen happen during this pandemic, is that it's really people working hand in hand together in order to solve specific gaps in the entire agricultural cycle. And then it's about ano pa ba? Yeah, that would be for me.
Simon, will we be seeing more of that 1-to-100 ratio you're talking about?
I think it's part of the solution, not the complete solution. No, in order for it to be sustainable, we need to work with Mother Nature. No, there's no getting around that, right? So there is a spot for it where we take what you'd call, I'd say, a little more man-made intervention for it, to scale it up, and there's a space for that, and we see that happening whether you're in Singapore, whether you're in the Middle East, even in rural America. They're starting to realize that there is a need and there is a space for these types of more controlled environments, these high volume environments. I think the key there also is that we need to shorten the demand signals between the buyers and the growers. No? So large companies do a good job of shortening that chain, right? But agriculture, and we know, as you grow something, it takes weeks, months, sometimes years for the produce to come from seed to harvest time. No, if we're talking about anything from if you're going to harvest a tree, or if you harvest lettuce, right? I mean, you're talking about a turnaround cycle, and that needs to be planned and that needs to be maintained. No? So I think what Stephanie and what we've been talking about, I think Jim had talked about it earlier, having that data model in place, the signals in place, so that it can be adequately planned and it becomes predictable, similar to how Tony does it for Annie. No, I mean, that predictability is what will allow us to drive to that food security space. And getting that predictability, we need to shorten that gap between the consumers and the growers, because there are always going to be challenges from a supply chain standpoint. I mean, that is that is a industry which will continue to drive creative solutions. But what can't be changed so much is Mother Nature and how long it takes to grow something. And knowing what to grow and what the consumer wants at the other end, that consumer side, that is what needs to shorten as well. So my vision for that is that gap will continue to narrow as our data modeling gets better and as our predictives get better. And it'll be an interesting world when that happens.
Quicker reaction time, in other words.
Yes. Yes.
Tony, crystal ball.
My my thoughts is 100 years ago, or about more than 100 years ago, the Spanish flu shifted economic power from the ancient Wall Street, Dasmariñas and Escolta Street, to Santo Cristo. So before the Spanish flu, the powerful are all located in Dasmariñas Street and Escolta Street in Binondo. But after the Spanish flu, the rich and the powerful are all in Santo Cristo. So it's a history repeat again this time, where we realize that during pandemic, I guess basic necessity is the most important aspect of every consumer. And agriculture has been a laggard in the Philippine economy for the last century. But this time, it will be the new shining star, considering that we have aging population among our Asian neighbors, Japan, Korea, China, and somebody has to feed them. So we have the youngest population. And if technology can bring our Filipino farmers, can bring our agri entrepreneurs to the export market, this is a huge market to capture. And this is going to be a demand-driven initiative that will inspire more people to jump into the bandwagon.
Fantastic. Jim, you've heard the optimism, but I know you're very familiar with the policy challenges. Do you share this rosy outlook, or is it a hard slug going forward?
Well, of course, we have to embrace the reality. And of course, I still have that hint of optimism, especially being a young professional in the field. No? I'm very hopeful of what we can do together as a country. I think one of the biggest things that needs to be done in agriculture, and it's interesting, I say this in a lot of technical working group meetings with agencies, is that 7 years ago when I was doing my undergrad thesis on supply chain issues, ganun pa rin ang nakikita hanggang ngayon, no? So unfortunately, we really have to address those supply chain miscommunications. And the way to do that, I think one of the biggest things forward to do that is to have data-driven solutions. So meaning data-driven not only for farmers, but even data-driven decision-making for businesses, for policymakers, especially sa policy-making level. Bakit po? And I will refer to one specific anecdote, just this pandemic, no? Now, when we talked about different agencies debating and arguing about the prices of pork, each agency had their own price, no? And they were spending so much time on what kind of policy to pass because nag-iiba yung data nila. And so that simple example of how do we unify the data, how do we ensure na pareho yung tinitingnan nating datos so that we work together better, no? I think that's crucial because at the end of the line, the Filipinos are going to be at the mercy of the policies, the market dynamics, kung ano ang takbo ng agrikultura. And so we have to have transparent, data-driven decision-making in agriculture. And of course, all these things are very crucial. The e-commerce, the digital literacy and all that. I think the pandemic has pushed us as a country to migrate faster into that digital economy. And I think all of us are learning already. And we're going through it, through the change already. I'm really hopeful that more young people would come into the space. And, back then, 5 years ago, when we started Youth in Agriculture Advocacy, the youth were rarely invited into spaces like these, or the youth were there were only a handful of young people that you would know of na nasa agrikultura. But ngayon, nakikita ko na mas madami ng young people na recognize and lahat yan. And I think that's a very hopeful step, no, for the industry forward, that there are more young people coming into the space. I'm just really hoping that agriculture also becomes an industry that is grounded on values of integrity and human connectedness. Kasi in the past, we've seen a lot of scams also in the agricultural sector. And so I think transparency is very crucial in the food systems. No, we have to ensure that people know what they're eating, that people know what they're investing in agriculture. And so I think that's very crucial for us as a country. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is a lot of possibility. There's a lot of potential. The fact that we're talking here shows that glimmer of hope, that there is still hope for the country and for agriculture as an industry for the Philippines.
So refreshing. Brilliant. Carl, over to you.
Right, so there's so much more we want to discuss, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this Inquirer Project Rebound webinar. So once again, we'd like to thank all of our speakers for sharing their valuable insights with us. And we will be ending this online discussion with a closing message from our speakers. So Ms. Steph, maybe you can start.
Yeah, sige. So on a good note, yeah, while the pandemic posed actually a lot of challenges, no, for the agricultural sector, it also opened up a lot of opportunities to be creative, to innovate, to be able to bridge all of these gaps. So I think now more than ever, we need to work together. So you have the government, you have the academe, private sector, civil society working together to collaborate to ensure that actually no one gets left behind.
Thank you, Steph. Simon, parting shots.
And thank you. I think first of all, honored to be sharing the camera with my fellow panelists. I really learned a lot from all of you. This is the age really where it's a new dawn for Philippine agriculture and the agriculture industry as a whole. We've come to recognize the importance of the industry, and we see how the Philippine agriculture industry, in order for the Philippines to be a truly developed nation, needs to be resilient, needs to be strong, needs to be supported. And the groups have to come together to support this. Public groups, our friends in the government, my colleagues in the industry as well. So this is the start of the new dawn, and I think we're all ready to rise to the challenge with new thinking and with good support. We can make this happen for the country.
Right, great. Thank you, Sir Simon. Now, maybe we can hear from Sir Tony.
Well, I've learned a lot from everyone today, and actually everybody shares a very similar vision that there is actually opportunity in agriculture. Let's not be too pessimistic, and let's try to reinvent agriculture for the sake of the country and for our next generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Mabuhay ka. Finally, let's hear it from Jim. Give us some hope.
Yes. Given the trend of agriculture, we're really seeing that there is possibility that it's going to even grow exponentially. The fact that we've seen more people valuing food in agriculture. I think we have to also start looking at agriculture through the lens of food, as food is the unifying topic amongst Filipinos, no? Ang dami nating napapag-usapan around food. And so when we educate people that food is very closely linked to agriculture and aquaculture, they'll understand the need and the value that agriculture and aquaculture and natural resources have provide for food. So I think with this, all of us sharing these different perspectives, what I'm really going to say is that there is an opportunity for multi-stakeholder partnerships. No? There is no one sector that will solve all the solutions. It's really working together, collaborating to address solutions in agriculture. And I think I really encourage the viewers and also everyone to look at how we can work closely with government, civil society, private sector, and young people, women's groups, and even farmers and fisher folk themselves na kasama sila sa usapan when we talk about solutions. So again, I close that when I go around different talks, I always say food security is national security. So I hope we achieve food security together.
Great. So thank you so much, Sir Jim. And to all our other speakers. This has been quite an interesting discussion, and I've been an agriculture reporter for 4 years, and I still learned a lot. So we hope those of you who listened in also learned a thing or two. And we're very grateful to our panel for sharing their insights. Right, Dax?
And that's it for our webinar today. Thank you again to our panelists for sharing their time and insights with us. Thank you once again for being a part of the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer.
And thank you so much to our viewers. And we'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy. So continue reading the Philippine Daily Inquirer for authoritative news and features. And once again, I am Carlo Campo of the Inquirer's Business Section.
And I am Dax Lucas from Inquirer Business. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream event possible. Annie Nurture Incorporated, PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. PLDT, Smart, Simple, Smart Ako. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to. We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
Whenever the sun first kisses the earth, the bounty of nature shares its gifts to provide, to delight, and to nourish. For over 2 decades, Earthright Holdings Incorporated, through its publicly listed subsidiary, Agri-Nurture, has been harvesting these gifts to reward the farmer, to strengthen the family, and to build the nation. Annie has mastered the logistics of moving produce and staples. It has also manufactured value-added agri-output, such as coconut water, a product that has started a new trend in big supermarkets and online retailers in North America. To complete its mission of providing from farm to plates, Annie has its nurturing brands such as Big Chill, Tully's Coffee, Fit Bites, Fresh Brew, Super Fresh, FCA, and Cheesecake, etc. All fast-moving, healthy retail brands from the Philippines to the world. To date, Annie exports to Greater China, Japan, Korea, North America, Europe, Australia, the Middle East, and Russia. Taking to heart its vision of being a global leader in providing sustainable nourishment, Agri-Nurture firmly believes that the fruits you bear will only be as good as the seeds you plant. Its beginnings were grounded on reality, but its dreams were lofty. The company has shown that what is homegrown can be world-loved. Annie has aimed for excellence from farm to shelf and happiness from shelf to home. This is how it became one of the biggest suppliers of fresh fruits and vegetables in major supermarket chains and wet markets here in the country and abroad. In 2015, Agri-Nurture went from mango orchards to rice fields and eventually into corn and banana plantations. Annie's venture into rice trading has grown into thousands of hectares of farmlands dedicated to Philippine rice production. In 2020, Annie's Bigma, which stands for Bigas and Mais, has been authorized for introduction by the Philippine Department of Agriculture. This nutritious rice-corn blend is intended to be a substitute for rice, the country's staple food. More than this, Bigma is meant to give an additional source of income for local farmers and boost the production of corn. Beyond providing nutritious and affordable food products, part of Annie's mission is to uplift the lives of farming communities by addressing the issues that would keep them from being productive. Through affiliate Agricultural Bank of the Philippines, the AgriToken closed-loop ecosystem usher into the digital age. This integrated solution brings together the farmers, contract farming companies, and lenders and investors to provide financing to farmers for needed farming components. In line with this, the company also safeguards food security and safety. Advocacies for the environment and social upliftment are likewise not overlooked. Greenergy, Annie's other affiliate, also owns Sunchamp, a farm that aims to promote agritourism as a viable source of added revenue. Agri-Nurture stands strongly by its corporate values. Empowerment. To bolster company performance, Annie's employees and farmers are always encouraged to take the initiative in decision-making and problem-solving. Advancement. Improvement of the quality of life of employees, farmers, and investors remain a top priority. Reliability. What is committed will be delivered because of responsibilities to customers, suppliers, and investors. Teamwork. We believe that business is built through each other and everyone's contribution. This can only be achieved when you have trust. We earn trust by honoring our commitments and showing respect for one another. Honesty. Integrity, fairness, and ethical practices are the things we never compromise. From the first seed planted to the latest harvest, Agri-Nurture has grown from distributor of fresh goods, the farmer's strongest advocate, the country's agricultural bridge to the world, and now into a major innovator. The vision stays clear. The mission holds true, and the opportunities remain unstoppable. Whenever the sun last kisses the land, the bounty of nature makes another promise.
Napansin mo ba? Mas madalas ka nang magsabi ng stay safe kesa bye-bye. At aminin mo, nawili ka sa TikTok hindi para mapasaya ang sarili, kundi para mapatawang iba. Napansin mo rin ba na palagi na kayong kumpleto pag nagsisimba? At sino mag-aakala na ang daming maglalabas ang internet celebrities ngayon? Ilang pagkain na bang na-order mo? Kahit di ka naman gutom, uhaw ka lang makatulong. At nakailang care emojis ka nang nasend mula ng ECQ. Pansin mo, iba na bigla ang go-to playlist mo. Alam mo rin bang mas maraming naglalabas ng pera ngayon? Kahit taghirap? Alam mo kung bakit? Kasi patuloy mang magbago ang mundo, isang bagay ang mananatili.
Malalampasan din natin to.
Hindi tayo mawawalan ng pag-asa. Kaya patuloy namin pinapanatili pinakamabilis at pinakamalawak ang inyong network. So we can all be connected by hope.
8 billion of us share our planet, and it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best: quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.